Today we're going to change out the valve cover on my 2003 Chevy Suburban. The LS engines are kind of known for some oil consumption, and GM did some changes to try to help alleviate that, and we'll talk about it real quick and I'll show you what I'm doing. So this is the original valve cover off my 2003 Suburban, and this is a new design. This is actually a Dorman, but GM has the same design or very similar. From what I could tell, they look the same looking at pictures. So the first thing GM did, they realized this was an issue. They switched the little rattly PCV valve for just this orifice one, which this one, if I recall correctly, I put in there the orifice design. It had the rattly one. I may be getting that confused with my 2000 GMC that I had, but pretty confident that I put this in there. So that was one thing they did, and that was to try to eliminate oil consumption. What happens is, under the valve cover, there's a lot of oil getting, splashed around from the rocker arms. It's oiling the rocker arms. It's getting slung off the tip of the rocker arms. There's oil vapors in here, engine vapors with an oil mist suspended in it. And what happens, your PCV is hooked up to the intake and the engine is drawing in those vapors. Well, it also draws in oil as well. Oil in the vapors, oil that's getting splashed around. It gets sucked up into the intake. And if you've pulled one of the intakes on one of these, they typically always have oil in them. Mine uses about a quart every 3,000. Now, it's pretty well sealed up. It doesn't leave any drips. It's a little, if you look over it, it looks a little oily underneath, but it's not leaking all that, and I don't think it's burning it past the rings. So this is a known issue. Like I said, this helped. And the other thing GM did, this is the original valve cover design, or at least it was on mine, and you can see this is a baffle, and this is to block off the PCV side to help try to keep oil vapors from getting in there. And so you've just got a few holes in here so it can suck oil up, or suck vapors up. What I think they did a second revision of these valve covers. If I recall correctly, I think there's 3 revisions of them. The second revision, I think, just has a round hole way over on this end with no other holes like this one does. And then the third revision is like this. So you've got the you've got a square hole with these little wings on it. And like I said, this is a Dorman, but looking at the GM part number, it looks the same from what I can tell. If you want to put the OEM one on it, do that. I'll put a link in the description. I'll also have to say there's a cut period. This is good to, I'll put the information here, so many years. And then they changed the way the PCV hooks up. If I recall correctly, there's a different hookup on the later models, and so it's a different valve cover part number. I will put all that stuff in the description with the information on it. Click on that description and you'll see, I'll try to find links to the OEM GM valve cover. You can buy it, and also to this Dorman one. A lot of people don't like Dorman. I don't typically have an issue with their hard parts. It's more electrical issues, electrical parts. I tend to steer away from them. This valve cover I paid $67 for. If I recall correctly, the GM one is about $150. So I decided to take a gamble on the Dorman. It comes with the valve cover gasket and the bolts with the little grommets on there. This is what the top side of it looks like. Like I said, this looks like the GM design, the updated GM design, so that's why I went with the Dorman. So I'm hoping this will help alleviate some of that oil consumption. It definitely can't hurt. One other difference here is that orifice PCV valve is built in to the valve cover. Maybe it's removable, but you can see they've got it siliconed in. It comes with it. Very similar to that guy, but just already on the valve cover. Other differences, I'm not real sure. The updated one's definitely a little heavier. It looks nice. Get your little Dorman wings, I guess. I guess you could paint this if you wanted to, but I don't think the stock one's painted. And over time it'll match the other side, I guess, as it gets grimy and stuff. I did put valve cover gaskets on this a few years ago. They were not leaking, so we are not going to mess with the other side. Let's see. There's, looks like an extra little bung here. We will not need that. It's really the only difference I see here. So let me get busy. Of course, I've already got this off, but I'll cut to that part of the video and show y'all how to get this off. So the process to get this valve cover off is we're gonna undo this big clip right here, and it's got this blue connector. I guess we can go ahead and undo that. Just do this live. Come on. If it hasn't been unplugged in a while, it's probably gonna be a little difficult. Just wiggle it. And there. So that's unplugged. I also like to undo this. So we'll get a little screwdriver in here and pop this out. That loosens this harness from this coil bracket. And then you could undo the spark plug wires if you wanted to, or once you get this unbolted, you can just let it kind of drop down and it's kind of out of the way without undoing them. If you want to undo them, you can, but I probably will not. So the individual coil packs are on a harness that runs on the back side of the coil bracket. So you can actually leave them plugged in. This big connector is the connector for them. So, you know, that's just, there's no point in undoing each coil. Just get this plug up out of your way. And you've got a series of long studs here. Don't get them confused with the actual coil pack bolts, but these long studs have to come off. So you got one here, and one there, and it gets there. And then, I don't know if you can see it, but it's right there. Come on, focus. Right there. It's possible I missed one, but I think that's it. That would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. If I got that wrong, I'll let you know. But we're going to unbolt those, and then the coil bracket will lift up off those studs, and I'm just going to set it down in there. After you do that, you've got 4 bolts that are kind of under. You can see one of them right here. You're going to have 4 that look like that one. Come on, focus. Right there. Holding the valve cover down. So you're just going to loosen those 4 off, and the valve cover itself will come off. Do not forget about your PCV hose. which connects at the back right there. So that hose that goes down, that's the back of the valve cover. That's the PCV hose. Pull that off the back of the valve cover. And you can see that last coil stud sticking up right there beside it. So that's it on getting the valve cover off. So I'll set up some time lapse. Y'all can watch me do this. It's not that difficult of a job. It's a little bit crowded in here. If you want to make yourself a little bit more room, which I will probably do that, I'm gonna take off this hose. The only reason I say I'm doing that, also as part of my stuff I'm doing here, I did knock sensors on this a while back, and one of them, since I replaced it, has been about every 6 months it'll throw check engine light. It's just a defective sensor. And so I'm gonna, while I'm working on this, I'm gonna go in and replace that one knock sensor. So I'll be pulling the intake off today, but I'm not videoing that because I'm gonna try to rush through that. There's a lot of good videos on that. You know, if you are interested in that, I didn't do one the first time I did it, and I'm not doing one this time. So if you want a quick tip on knock sensors, torque them down. I've read that they are very sensitive to that. I did torque these down. And this is the, I also would say do not get them from Amazon. These I got from Amazon. The first set, both of them were bad. And so I had to take it apart, put another set from Amazon in, you know, and they're Delphi sensors, put them in, and then one of them is bad. I was like, I've already pulled this intake twice now. I just reset the code and it didn't come back for 6 more months, and I just lived with it like that for about 1.5 years. And then, so now I'm like, all right. So I ordered one from Rock Auto, a Delphi, same Delphi part number. So we're only replacing the one that has an issue. And I put a new harness on it when I did it before, siliconed them up. So I think the harness should still be good. We're only going in there and replacing that one sensor. Anyway, that's off topic here. Let me get busy. I'll show you all the process. All right, it's off. And like I said, I'm about to pull the intake. I'll get the valve cover back on it first, but I'm gonna pull the intake to do a knock sensor. So I went ahead and undid the harness on the top of the intake right there. If you've got that cover over the intake, you'll take that off. I took mine off and never put it back on, but that gives you a little more room to get that harness kind of out of the way. It is kind of a stretch to get the valve cover off. I kind of went right in between these two and got it. You might have better luck if you undo this and maybe pull that one out of the way. I don't know. This worked pretty good though. If you completely remove the coil packs, you know, maybe that would help a little bit because you could drop the valve cover down in there and wiggle out or whatever, but coming right through that little spot right there worked. And there's our 295,000 mile engine. Looks pretty good. And one thing to note, I'm due for an oil change and I timed it just at that so that we'll put the new valve cover on, we'll start it up, and that'll allow, if we knocked any contaminants down in here, we'll start it up, let it run for a couple minutes, and wash that stuff down in the oil pan, and then we'll change the oil. I did take an air blower and got down in here and blew, before I took the valve cover off, blew as much as I could to kind of blow any loose debris out of the way so it wouldn't just fall right in. But yeah, not too bad getting it out. Probably 10 minutes took me to do it, maybe 15. I did pull the air intake tube off, like I said, because I'm gonna pull the intake manifold, but you wouldn't necessarily have to do that. I just took off anything that looked like it might make it a little bit easier, that it was gonna have to come off anyway for the other job that I'm doing. So now that we have our old one off, I've already showed you the new one early in the video, but here it is again. We will go set this thing on. I'll put the time lapse on and torque these down. I'll put the torque spec right here, torque them down. Just be real careful when you slip this thing in here. You don't want to knock your gasket off. This one comes with the gasket pre-installed, but you know, it just fits down in here. There's a little you know, groove that gasket sits in, so it could fall out, so just be real careful on that. My old one's still sitting over there, so I'm gonna pull it off, and I'm gonna take a rag with some brake cleaner and wipe down this surface that this sits in on the head, and just make sure that's all clean and before we set it on there. So I'm gonna do that real quick, and then I'll start up the time lapse again. You'll see me setting this thing on there, and I'll run it down quickly with my ratchet. I'll do it by hand, and then I'll get my little torque wrench and torque these down. All right, we've got it all back together. I'm gonna start it up, let it run for a little bit, and make sure I don't have any leaks or anything. Like I said, I'll put a link in the description to the GM valve cover and the Dorman. And like I said, there is a year difference. You know, there's a early and late. These are early. This is the early style, early models, and then the later models are slightly different, I think mainly with the way the PCV hooks up, but I'm not positive on that. I just know that there is a difference. So I'll put all that information in the description, and I will report back to y'all how this does. You know, I'm about to change the oil, and so I'll keep tabs on, you know, if I have to add any, how much I have to add. Like I said, it was about 2 quarts, I'd say 1.5 quarts per oil change probably, but I'd say average about every 3,000 miles a quart. So that's about what it was. We'll see if it improves. And when I pulled the intake off to do the knock sensor, of course the intake was all oily. The intake runners are oily. Cleaned all that up because it was sucking in oil. Thanks for watching. Leave a comment down below. hit the like button and subscribe for more.